Judge, also known as Oney Judge, stayed. She was a woman of mixed races who was enslaved by the Washington family. Ona Judge had escaped slavery to New Hampshire. Judge was born at Mount Vernon, which was the Washington's Virginia plantation. She was born around 1773. The exact date was not known. She was born to an indentured servant named Andrew Judge and a slave named Betty Judge. Oney Judge was raised as a slave and began serving as the personal attendant to Martha Washington at the age of 10. Ona Judge got a visit from the abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator, on January 1st, 1847 in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. She stated that she fled from enslavement from the Washington household 50 years earlier. Ona was later described as a light mulatto, much freckled and almost white. She was posted in the household at 10 years old, and she became Martha Washington's personal maid. Ona Judge was like her mother in many ways. She was skilled at sewing, also known as the perfect mistress of her needle. When George Washington was elected president, Ona Judge was 15 years old. She traveled with George Washington and seven other enslaved people to exclusive residence. They went to New York, then Philadelphia. She was one of the enslaved people George Washington secretly rotated out of Philadelphia in order to invade the 1780 Pennsylvania Emancipation Law. He asked his secretary to accomplish this rotation under the pretext that they may be deceived from the public. During George Washington's presidency, Ona Judge continued on as Martha Washington's helper. She helped her bathe, dress, and would clean, mend, and organize Martha's belongings, and anything else she required of her. In the busy capital of Philadelphia, her life was drastically different from the one she led with the other enslaved people from Mount Vernon. Ona Judge received a small amount of cash from George Washington on several occasions to go see a play, a circus, or even sometimes the tumbling feats. Her position in George Washington's household meant that she regularly received a supply of high-quality clothing. The Washington's account book shows that they bought her shoes, they bought her gowns, stockings, and bonnets. The city had a large number of free black people and Quaker abolitionist communities, and offered the young woman innovative ideas, connections, and opportunities to escape. On May 21st, 1796, the Washingtons were preparing to return to Mount Vernon for the summer. Ona Judge decided to escape. As she recalled, in 1845, whilst they were packing up to go to Virginia, I was packing up to go. I didn't know where I was going, but if I went back to Virginia, I should never get my liberty. I had friends among the colored people of Philadelphia. I had many things carried there beforehand and left the house while they were eating dinner. 2 days later, a man named Frederick Kitt, a steward at the executive residence the Washington hired, placed an advertiser announcing that Oney Judge had ran away from the president's house and offered a $10 reward for her recapture. He warned she might be trying to pass as a free woman, escaping on a ship leaving the port of Philadelphia. Oney Judge had 2 reasons for running away. First, she wanted to get free, and second, she had overheard that she would be given to Martha's eldest granddaughter, Eliza Peart, by the Curtis Law, and she had a bad temper and she would never want to be her slave. Frederick Kit was right about one thing, though. After leaving the Washington household, Oney Judge secured passage on Nancy, a ship commanded by Captain John Bowles, going to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. She never revealed John Bowles' name until he died. Even in New Hampshire, Judge was never safe. Just a few months after arriving, she was recognized on the street by one of Martha's youngest granddaughter, Nellie Curtis. Word of their escape whereabouts reached George Washington, who enlisted the help of Joseph Whipple, the customs collector in Portsmouth. Whipple found Judge and tried to convince her to board the ship for Philadelphia. Judge replied that she would readily return, but only if the Washingtons promised to free her after their deaths. Otherwise, she said, she would rather suffer death than return to slavery and liable to be sold or given to any other person. There was no seduction by a Frenchman, she assured Whipple, but rather when Washington learned of Judge's request, he was furious. His response to her proposed deal reveals the tension between his stated anti-slavery principles and the reality of being a slave owner. He fumed to Whipple. To enter into such a compromise with her, as she suggested to you, is totally inadmissible. For however well disposed, I might be a gradual abolition, or even to an entire emancipation for the description of people, if the latter was itself predictable at this moment. It was neither to be politic nor just to reward unfaithfulness with a premature preference, and thereby disconnected beforehand the minds of all her fellow servants who, by their steady attachments, are far more deserving than herself of favor. Because of the federal fugitive state law, which Washington had signed in 1793, slave owners retained the legal right to recapture enslaved people who escaped across state lines, if necessary with force. As president, Washington knew that using violent measures to seize an enslaved woman who had ran away could anger anti-slavery residents of northern states. He asked Whipple to continue efforts to recapture Judge, but only if Whipple made further attempts to capture her. Judge evaded them in January 1997. She married Jack Staines. As a free black sailor, the couple went on to have 3 children, Eliza, Will, and Nancy. February 1848, in Greenland, New Hampshire, Oney Judge was confirmed to be deceased.